Hello YouTube, welcome to the channel. Finally bit the bullet and decided I would make some videos on here. I've always been a consumer of YouTube, so I figured now is as good a time as ever to give back to the community. So I just wanted to do a little channel intro, tell you what I'm about, and kind of my motivations behind all this. First off, I plan on this being a Christian channel. I am a middle-aged Christian man. I know there are plenty of Christian content creators out there, so I am by no means trying to compete. If anything, this is also just kind of a journaling, if you want to call it that, for my own personal use, I guess. And if I can kind of share some of my experiences with various things in life, then awesome. I'm not looking to make any money off of this. I work a full-time job. I do not need ad revenue or whatever. I'm not even going to monetize these videos unless that's in some way in God's plan and He tells me to do it. I'm really just doing this for you guys. A little bit of wisdom, as much wisdom as a young guy like me can have. I live in the Pacific Northwest, as you could probably maybe guess by the background. Blessed, very blessed to have moved over here. This hike right here is pretty much my backyard. I come up here every day, so I figured why not start making some videos up here. Kill two birds with one stone, you know? Today I briefly kind of came up with talking about isolation, loneliness. As we all know, it is a pandemic on Earth right now, especially post-COVID, for sure. I really don't believe that anybody really fully recovered from COVID. I mean, I can see it still in the churches. I remember in churches, every church I went to, people would greet each other. They'd have the minute, 2 minutes, greet your neighbor, and then they just got rid of that. And it never came back. I've been church shopping. I haven't lived here that long. I've only lived here a little over half a year in this specific area. I lived in Idaho, I'm right on the border of Idaho. I lived over there for a couple years. I've done a lot of church shopping, and there was only one church that I go to now that started doing the greeting thing post-COVID. So that was almost enough for me to stay there. It's a great church. It's the Bible teaching is great and so on, but that's a different topic. It's kind of a measure of where I feel like society is. It's almost like people are afraid still to really reach out and interact with other people, like out on the street, the grocery store, the coffee shop. It's just hard. I don't know why. It's just hard these days. I mean, you've probably heard it. Go spend 2 minutes on YouTube and you'll find thousands of videos about people complaining about being alone. Nobody wants to talk to anybody anymore. Ultimately, I think the biggest contributor to that is social media. I mean, we can probably all agree with that. Social media has become an addictive idol in most people's lives, and that is a big reason a couple years ago I got rid of it. YouTube is like the closest thing I guess I have to social media, if you want to call YouTube social media. But yeah, I got rid of it for that reason. It just got toxic. It's just you're looking for likes. All that matters are likes and how many views and all this stuff, and it's draining, it's stressful, it wears you out. I've even heard of some instances of some people taking themselves out over Facebook likes or Facebook posts that didn't get enough likes. I've heard of that. I've read articles on that. It's crazy to me. I mean, talk about, demonic. I'm just gonna say it. That it gets to demonic levels of idolization, of attention, I guess. And I think Satan loves that. I think Satan obviously loves when we're self-obsessed, narcissistic. I'll be the guy who throws out the N-word narcissistic, everybody says everybody's a narcissist, but I mean, it's true. It's social media kind of harbors that. It creates that kind of dynamic in a lot of people's lives. I feel like that really leads to this isolation and this feeling cut off from the world. It's like, you've heard it before, we're so connected, but at the same time, the most disconnected we've ever been because of social media. You can go start up a conversation with somebody on social media and then go to the coffee shop and everybody's got their headphones in. Nobody's even looking at each other. They got their head shoved into a wall, reading a book or something, with their ear pods on. So I experienced a lot of that over the past couple years, through various circumstances. Kind of lone wolfed it over the past couple years. So I got to kind of experience a lot of that push and pull of trying to put yourself back out there, trying to reintegrate with society in a way. And it doesn't help that I personally have moved a lot. I'm originally from the coast, kind of the Seattle area, and my family moved a lot when we were over there. I've always been kind of on the move with my family, not necessarily that I want to be always up and moving around, but that's just how it is, how the economy is, and that's just how life was. And I moved over to Idaho, lived there for a couple years, and now I'm back over the border, closer to work. So it's been kind of hard finding a new community, I guess you can say. The moral of all of this is, you're not alone. We're all going through it. I'm going through it. Everybody's going through it. I'll bring it to a biblical point of view very soon, but just know everybody's going through it. Because when you're isolated and alone, it feels like you're the only one that's experiencing it. I mean, that's the definition of being isolated. You feel like you're alone. You feel like you're the only one that is alone. And then you look out the window and you see people hanging out at the park, going and doing stuff together, and you think that's everybody. You're the only one that's, not doing that. FOMO, but it's not true. Again, Google it. I hate Reddit, but go on Reddit. You'll see all the posts about people that are going through all the same thing. The Bible has a lot to say about isolation. There's this guy in the Bible named David. He went through a lot of isolation. There are many, many Psalms talking about being alone and crying out to God. Where are you, God? Why have you forsaken me? All my enemies are attacking me. Lamentations, there's a lot that the Bible has to say about it. I have 3 verses that really spoke to me. The first one is Proverbs 18:24. A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. That is such a powerful proverb. I mean, Proverbs are just the nuggets of life in general. I just love Proverbs. Anytime I'm reading the Bible, I'm always flipping back to Proverbs to get a little nugget of truth and motivation. But I love that verse. It's so powerful because it puts things in perspective, right? A lot of people think you need a huge friend circle. You need constant validation through friends. You need to be constantly talking to people on the phone, in groups, always interacting with people, when that's not always the case. And that is coming from experience. Years ago, I used to help lead a little Bible study, or a little hiking group / Bible group at this old church I used to go to, and it had a lot of people in it. It was one of those, I guess, mega churches, you could say. So it was popping off. It was happening. I know what it's like to be in a huge friend circle. And honestly, it felt good at first because it's kind of a validating, it's a good feeling, You're known, you're popular. But at the same time, a lot of times you feel alone. And I think this verse speaks to that really well, because a man of many companions may come to ruin. Why would he come to ruin? Because it's not deep. It's surface level. A lot of these friends are more like acquaintances. Nothing gets too deep. So when stuff really starts getting hard and falling apart, are they all gonna run to you? No. Some will, obviously, but most won't. And that can be a very lonely feeling. It can almost be worse, having that huge friend circle and then realizing when you need them, they may not be there for you. And that's not to get depressing. I'm sure there's plenty of instances where they would come to your aid. But ultimately, I think, me personally, a friend or two that sticks next to you at all times through thick and thin, has your back through all things, isn't demanding of you, isn't expecting something from you, that's gold. That's treasure. That is rare. And not all of us are blessed with even having a friend. I have very close friends, but they don't live in my area. I obviously have my family, where I'm very close with my family. But I have a couple childhood friends that have always been by my side, but they live in a whole different state. But I'm okay with that, because you can bet if they need me, I'll be on a plane over there. If they're going through some stuff, I'll respond, and they would do the same for me. So that's a very long, drawn out explanation for that verse, I think, and I'll just leave it at that. I think don't be too concerned with having a ton of friends. One or two really close friends are really all you need, if that. But ultimately, even if you don't have that, you have Jesus. He is ultimately your best friend. And I know that's like the cliche Christianese thing to say, but it's true. So I don't really care if it's Christianese. I don't really care if it's cliche. It's just the truth. And I'll leave it at that. So the second verse is Psalms 25:21, and this is going back to David being alone. It says, "May integrity and uprightness preserve me, for I wait for you." This is when he's going through some stuff. This is when all his enemies are coming against him. His family, his brothers, his friends are turning their back on him. He has nowhere to turn. He feels alone and isolated. But his faith is so strong, and he is so close to the Lord that he knows he can rely and count on God. And he knows to be patient. That's why he says wait. Because sometimes, even when you're calling out and you're praying to God, you're in your prayer closet. Believe me, I lived in my prayer closet for a long time, and sometimes, you don't feel God. You don't hear him. So that's where I think a lot of faith, patience, and trust comes in, for sure. Because a lot of people get freaked out, like they're falling away from God because they aren't getting some direct download from God in their prayers. So I think that verse speaks really well to that. David himself is showing that waiting is very important, and it is also very hard. Believe me. The last verse I have is, of course, Jesus in Luke 5:16. But he withdrew to desolate places to pray. That's ESV and NIV. Instead of desolate, it says lonely. So even Jesus, he secluded himself, not in a bad way, but he had to get away so that he could be closer and more focused on God and his Father. So if Jesus is doing it, I don't think we should be too stressed or worried about a whole lot. but it's easier said than done. So to wrap this all up, this video's already gone longer than I thought it would, but if anything, just know that you aren't alone, that a lot of us, most of us, are going through this period of isolation. I think I'm not going to get into this whole deal, but I think it's just another sign of kind of end times, kind of the birthing pangs of the earth, you know. Things are kind of wrapping up. People are starting to fall away, and there's so much like hatred in the world. I'm not even getting into the, you know, the social justice stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just general common courtesy, common sense, friendship. It's more rare even in my own lifetime. Even less than 10 years ago, I've seen such a huge change in how people treat each other. So again, that's not to get Debbie Downer. That's not to say that we're all just doomed, and I'm not being a doomer here, but I just want to encourage you and to tell you you're not alone. We're all getting through this, and to have faith and trust the Lord has a plan, and He knows what He's doing. He knows we're all going through this. As His children, He sees us. He sees the pain. He hears our prayers, every single one. Even when we don't feel it, even when we don't hear anything, He is listening. He cares. You just gotta trust, you gotta have faith, and you gotta be patient. I'll be the first to tell you, I struggle with patience. That is one of the things that I've always had a hard time with my whole life, patience. I know for a fact that God uses things to grow us in various ways. So He will use isolation, He will use loneliness to strengthen us in areas that we don't even realize it in the moment. And I've already seen that. Even over these past couple years, I've seen so much growth in myself. And if I can see changes and experience changes and experience the faithfulness and the love of God, then so can you. So can everybody else. You just got to stay faithful. You got to stay prayed up. You got to stay in the Word. Just turn to Him at all times. Always turn to Him. Call out to Him. He will never fail you. So, I mean, that just speaks for itself. There's really nothing a whole lot else I can say. Video 1, I have a few things in mind, a few topics that I'd like to go over just from my own life and experiences. I hope this helped. I hope you got something out of this. If anything, just maybe a different take or a new take, or, you know, even just a different background to a video. Because I know there's plenty of creators, Christian content creators out there that way bigger than me, obviously, that go over the same topics. But again, like I said, I think more Christians should be putting themselves out there and just doing this, getting their little, you know, nuggets of wisdom out there, so that others that are maybe struggling, or maybe don't even know the Lord, we can bring them closer, because that's ultimately what this is about. We want to be a light to the world and a salt to the world. So this is just one step closer to that. So thanks for watching. I'll catch y'all next time.